Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's interview and resume workshop. We're so excited to have all of you. My name is Brianna Sloan, and I'm the Alumni Relations Manager for the Cristo Rey Network, in case anyone haven't seen me before. And just want to thank everyone for taking the time to be here today. And I'd like to introduce our amazing presenters, Lenora and Boujou. Lenora is the International Director of Expeditors Opportunity Knocks Youth Program and U.S. Veteran Program. And Boujou is the Product Integration Manager for Expeditors. And today they're going to offer you some practical tips and strategies to prepare you for an interview and improve your resume through this exclusive behind the lens look at what the company sees in candidates. So thanks to the both of you for sharing your experience and expertise with us today, and we really appreciate it. So also for those who are interested in watching this session again, we're going to have a recorded version of this on our webinar available on our alumni website, so you can access it at any time after the webinar ends. So yeah, I'll let our wonderful speakers kind of take the floor now. Feel free to share your screen and get started whenever you're ready. And just as a reminder for all of our guests, please be mindful of your microphone. And if you're able to share your camera, we would love to invite you to do that now. So awesome.
Thanks so much. It's really fun for us to do this, you guys. So thanks. I know there's just a few of us on here, but it's really something we love to do. So thanks for taking your time. And our biggest goal is to be as relevant for whatever season you're in right now. And really over the years, besides that, Boujou is going to share her story a little bit later. And I want to save a lot of time for that because she's awesome. And it's just fun for us to do this together. But it's stuff I've learned over the years working with interns, my own personal experience, been in and out of the workforce, as well as this particular company. I think there's some standard principles that tend to help anybody. So it's fun, again, to share those. And but before I jump into that and share my screen, since there are a few of you that, I don't know if you're willing to, just tell me, what do you hope to? What are kind of a couple thoughts you hope to get out of this hour? Anybody want to share that?
I mean, I personally, hold on. Okay, I personally just want to make my resume as presentable as possible, so that, actually, let me do this on my phone because I can hear my echo.
Okay, that's good though. And I realize, go ahead.
Sorry, yeah, I just want to make my resume like as presentable and memorable as possible, so that I can hopefully get, I mean, those jobs that I want, those internships, and just be memorable and just to like be able to present myself as accurately as possible and as briefly as possible. But so yeah, that's what I hope to gain from this.
Nice, thank you. That helps me know which pieces to focus on, because we have more content that we could really cover thoroughly in an hour, so it'll help me know what to focus on. Who else? Do either of you want to? You can tap it in the comments too. Or if you want to speak up, it's totally up to you. Okay, what I'm going to do then is I'll go ahead and share my screen, see if I can do this effectively. Oh, there's the button. It's right there in green. It should be easy to do. Okay. Did it pop up here? Let's see. We got the screen. Pardon me. Bummer to get all this stuff on there. Okay. So as we go through this, again, like I said, there's really quite a few things on here and more than we could cover thoroughly. So I'll go through some of this pretty fast. And after I talk for a while, then Boujou is going to be sharing some of her story. She has a great story that I think is going to be loaded with great tips. And then we want to have time specifically for Q&A at the end. But don't hesitate to go ahead and say, I don't know if I'll see the comments as well. Both whether Brianna or Boujou want to interrupt anytime, or you guys want to unmic yourself and ask a question, please feel free to do that. That's no problem. Otherwise, we'll specifically take that time at the end. But what we're talking about, and I thought it was a great title, Brianna, on what employers really want. And obviously it will vary somewhat with different companies, but there are some standard things that I think tend to work anywhere. So that's what we want to focus on. And the agenda, we just kind of did that first piece. What do you hope to gain out of this? We'll talk really quickly about the overall objective we're thinking to talk about. And I do want to focus quickly about the hiring perspective in general. It's definitely a two-way street. The resume, the interview, and then again over to Boujou for the story and Q&A. So I have this thing that I tend to say over the years. I don't know how it started, but it's not that hard to stand out. It's just really easy not to. There's some things that people can do to help themselves stand out, help themselves be prepared more so than another candidate. And there's things it's just easy not to take the time to do. So again, I want to give you some of those tips, but our objective is broaden your perspective on the job search and then increase your preparedness for getting hired. I want to start off with an example of someone who, in this case, I happened to know his family. He was interested in possibly working for Expeditors. He was in college. No, he was actually still in high school. He was in his high school, I think his senior year, and had said, we just had talked, and I said I could get him an informational interview. And I did, with the senior vice president that I worked with on our youth program. And so that just means you prepare yourself ahead of time with questions, you read the company website, and you do all the work, show up to just learn about the company, ask some questions. And that's one thing about an informational interview is the person, all they have to do is have the 20 minutes because you've done all the prep. And then you just want to make sure you've done the basic research on the website so that you can, ask beyond the obvious things you could just read for yourself. This guy was in high school, printed off 40 pages of the website, had gone through it, marked it up, come up with questions. In his case, he went over it with his dad, and he impressed both myself and the senior vice president. We were like, and still, that was probably at least 8 years ago. I have yet to see someone who did that much work for an interview, much less an informational interview. So I've never forgot it. And he asked good questions. He actually ended up later on doing an internship for our branch office, worked for us for a couple of years. He now works in Washington, D.C. in like the special service for, he doesn't work for Expeditors anymore, but it's like the guy knows how to go for things he wants. And it was an amazing amount of diligence. So I'm not saying you have to do that much work, but I'll never forget what he did. So I just want to bring this up when it comes to, again, perspectives about the job search in general. I think both having a business, starting a business, and hiring, getting a job has some risks. So from the data, I put it right here on the slide, showing that approximately 20% of new businesses fail during the first 2 years, 45% during the first 5 years, 65% during the first 10 years. Only 25% of new businesses make it to being 15 years old or older. That's a whole lot of business failure. So keep in mind that some businesses are well established. They're enormous. They're huge. They're the ones we hear about on the news all the time. But most businesses are in those stages of, am I going to make it in their first 10, 15 years? Who knows? So keep in mind, you don't know necessarily what stage they're in and how risky it is for them to feel like hiring too. But I know in general, almost nobody likes looking for a job. Who does? It's like, oh, I got to put myself out there. Do I want this? Do they like me? Are they going to get back to me? All that. But another perspective is when you're in that job search and you really want to land something, it's best to treat it that looking for your job is your job until you have it. Now, it takes a lot of energy. You're putting yourself out there over and over and following up and trying to figure out, am I doing it right? Is it me? Is it them? Are they going to get back to me? Sometimes it happens really fast. Sometimes it doesn't. So give yourself breaks too. Be nice to yourself, encourage yourself, but treat it like it kind of is your job until you land a job. It's kind of nice if you have a job and you're looking for a job because then you feel less stressed about the finances, or depending on your living situation, all those things factor in too. Again, a little bit about two perspectives. And this came something I figured out over time when I used to do a summer workshop for interns years ago. Every summer, even though they already were interns at Expeditors, I would do a workshop for them. And I was surprised, thankfully, how much they did like it because, again, I began to hear what their perspectives were. And then being on this side of the hiring or the interview process, I realized, oh, I can share things from this perspective. One is, you have to think, of course, why are you looking? Is it a financial need? Is it, you're bored? Usually it's a financial need, but it could be I'm under great stress. It could be I have a job, but want to change my job. But you also want to think, well, why are they hiring? It could be business growth. It could just be summer season that spike. Who knows? But there's obviously different reasons, and hopefully you can ask questions to come out about that even in the interview process. But this was a big one for me to discover that people aren't necessarily thinking about, including myself in the past. When you're looking for a job, and if you want to answer this, feel free. Are you typically overworked or underworked at the time you're looking? Anybody want to say? It could go either way, but I'd say more often than not, people are looking because they aren't employed and have a lot of time. Whether or not they want to spend it on that, they've got a fair amount of time on their hands. Certainly not always. But when the person who's hiring, most of the time, that team, that business is overworked, understaffed, meaning it often can be the opposite. The person looking has a lot of time. The person hiring is stressed out, is busy, is doing too much, wishes they didn't have to take the time aside to do this, but they have to hire. Either somebody's quit or their department's grown or they have a new project. So keep in mind, if they're not getting back to you, it may have nothing to do with you and everything to do with how much they're trying to get done at the same time, trying to hire, knowing, gosh, am I going to pick right? Am I going to get the right person? Are they going to want it? Are they going to stay? So sometimes their perspective is very different. There are risks when you take a job, not like maybe dangerous risks, but risks, meaning am I going to like my boss? Is the pay going to work for me? Am I going to like it? All these types of things. Do I like the company culture? What's the team going to be like? Is this a place where I can grow? What's the commute? All of these things that are just on this slide. So there are risks, things you're thinking about. There's also things for them when they're hiring. Does this person, they talk really well in an interview? Can they actually do the job? What's their skill level, their attitude? There's the difference between you. Sometimes you want someone ambitious, but they need some patience because you can't necessarily, they may want a new job or grow really fast, but you may not have the position. So they're thinking, will this person stick around? Can they do the job well? Will they do it well? It's risks on both sides. So both sides want to think a little bit, how can I reduce my risk? So with a company, the types of things a company will do to reduce the risk is it's actually a pretty high percentage where people hire from referrals. And it makes sense. That's why it's good to network, to meet people, to do informational interviews, to talk to people that you know have a business or or in the jobs that you like, or just meet them and start asking questions. Because if I'm hiring and I'm overworked, I'm stressed, I want to get this done as easy as possible, as quick as possible. So if I can hire someone, like if somebody who works for me is really good at what they do and they have a friend and they say, hey, I think you'd really like my friend, they're going to apply. Because I trust you, I would more likely trust someone they refer. So that's how it's reducing risk. That's why, again, networking is really good. Another thing people will do is, of course, background checks. That's pretty common. They'll call your referrals and try to get an opinion on what you do. Because what they're trying to see is, will this person, what will their actual behavior be? Will they actually show up on time? Will they do this? Whatever. So that's what interviews are for. Sometimes they'll have a second interview or a group interview. I went with an airline years ago and I had 3 interviews and a month of full-time training before I actually started the job. So it was quite a bit of a process, but all of that to say, they're trying to reduce their risk because they want to, once they're done hiring, they want to be done for a while if they can. And with myself, whoops, I meant to click this. I don't know why my video went off, but okay. When I'm doing the interviewing and I'm looking for a job, sometimes I want to look at how can I reduce the risk for me? They're trying to reduce the risk for them. How can I reduce the risk for me? Definitely reading their website. It's way too easy to do that kind of work. So reading their website, reading articles. Again, if you can do an informational interview, call and say, hey, I am really interested in this company or this sector. I would love to find out more. Would it be possible for me to get 20 minutes with you? I will do all the preparation. You don't have to do anything. I just need 20 minutes. I'll show up, ask you some questions, and that'll be it. Now, sometimes informational interviews will become an actual interview because if they like you, it may actually work out, or they'll remember you for when there is. So those are never a bad idea. Certainly asking questions during the interview or ahead of time if I can. Another thing, how I can reduce the risk for them. If I really think I want to work at a certain company, or at least I do for now. What I'll do is make sure I'm doing everything I can to be prepared. It's that reading that website. It's asking, being prepared with questions, making sure I am not just on time for an interview, but be early. I am going to, actually what I'm gonna do right now is move this video that I have I've got the slides of everybody. I'm blocking my own little notes here. When you do your resume, it's worth it to make a resume often specifically to the job that's posted, because you want to say, hey, am I using words that they're looking for? They're saying they want someone who's good under pressure. So I'm going to say something about that, how I handle pressure. They may say something about, I don't know, pick whatever you want to pick. If I can, and it's relevant, never make something up that you didn't do, but use some of the same terms. If you can draw it out, then be specific. I just went through this with someone who wanted to get into production work for some video. And so they've done a little bit. And I asked more questions specifically. Well, what have you done? Because sometimes they're too generic, and it's like, no, break it down, get specific, match what's going on. Never make up something. Always be honest on a resume, but make it specific. And of course, when you're in an interview, we'll talk about this more in a minute. You want to use non-hypothetical answers. Hypothetically, we're all wonderful. But it's really nice if you can express on an interview specifically things you've done. They may not know how to ask you non-hypothetical questions, but if you can answer in very specific ways, like they say, well, how would you handle a stressful customer situation? Well, you might want to say, you know what? At my last job, I was working on X, and this customer was really mad about whatever. And what I did was talk to them first. I stayed very calm. And then I did grab my manager, brought them in, and we did this X, Y, and Z. When I bring a very specific answer of a very real situation, actions I took and results I got, what I'm actually doing is reducing their sense of risk, whether they get it or not, whether they understand it or not. Me being that specific helps them see, oh, she actually gave me a story, so it makes me feel like I know her. And anytime you do that, oops, I'm echoing a little bit. I don't know why. But anytime you bring in those specifics, it actually helps bring in a sense of familiarity, a sense of trust. And again, it helps you feel like less of a risk for a hire. Because people will tend to repeat the behaviors you've already done. If you're sharp now and you showed up on time and always did a great job with your last job, you'll probably do that at this job. So a resume's purpose is get their attention, because sometimes people, they don't spend that much time on their resume, and they'll think, well, as soon as they meet me, they'll want to hire me. Yeah, but if you can't get in the door, they never get to find out how cool you are. So it's worth the time to pull a template from the internet, find something that looks sharp that you think kind of matches the industry, because your whole goal is to get that interview and show them that you can benefit the team. So again, we only have a few minutes to go over some of this, but 4 resume parts, and I'm sure this could be done different ways. Whoops, I want to go back one. Goals, skills, knowledge, and behavior. I used to teach a course on assessing employee performance on the inside for managers, to how to assess employee performance. And we start with talking about the resume and the hiring process in the beginning, because sometimes companies don't have updated job postings. And so you find out you got hired for something, it's actually not it's only half of what you're going to be doing, because they didn't update their job posting. It's not a win for them or for you. So they need to know what's the scope of the job, what skills are they looking for, what knowledge do they want, and what behavior, meaning what kind of attitude, what kind of person is going to work here, as far as someone that obviously the on-time person, the person that wants to be a part of a team will step in and help, even if it's not their job, that type of thing. So with your resume, you're thinking, well, I want to match up and show them, objective. It's sometimes called different things now, but I'll start with that, is the objective sometimes at the top of your resume, and look up examples. It's always the internet. It's so much easier now, because you can look things up real quick. So your objective, I highly recommend that it's more about what you can bring to the table and your interest in that specific position than it is what you hope they'll do for your career. Because again, if they're under stress and and companies are getting smarter, realizing, hey, I do need to make sure I'm providing opportunity and growth opportunity to keep employees. But I want to think on, how can I show them that I'll bring value so that I stand out as a candidate? Okay. So I'll make my objective how I want to use my skills, the things I care about, the things I'm good at, to be an asset to a team or whatever. And you'll find some nice examples on the internet. But again, focus more on showing what you bring to the table and how you will fit well and benefit their team if you're wanting for the advantage on your side. Career highlights. This isn't always used on resumes. I did use it on mine. I had been in and out of the workforce as a mom with growing kids, and I went back into the workforce. I had a gap I was concerned about, a couple of years where I was I was working, but I was mom. It doesn't really necessarily fit on a resume. So I did do some side work so I could kind of show that for time anyways, because it was some contract work off and on. But a friend of mine provoked me. She used to be a VP in a company that helps people get jobs. And thank God she just pushed me to do these, what they call situation, action, result stories, little brief summaries on my resume. She's had me write up all this stuff. It was a lot of work, but it turned out to be really worth it. Where I'd look at a situation, what actions I took, what results I got. So I could show on a resume, wow, this person looks like she will get results for us because she got results for them. Okay. Obviously, your job experience. Sometimes what people do is way too vague on what they did. Even when I worked with my daughter, who's in her early 20s, and she had worked at a retail store, and I said, and she was expanding some stuff on her resume, and I had said, well, what all did you do? And she didn't, she just kind of said some very generic things. And I had her more specifically tell me, and I said, okay, write that down. Or like, did you get any awards? Didn't you get an award once? And she goes, well, yeah, I got this thing for converting the most people who you're supposed to ask this question if they wanted a credit card. And apparently I did the most that month. I said, put it on your resume. She was like, what? Well, that was just, I go, no, you were the top person for converting sales that month. Put it on your resume. So many times people take for granted what they actually have accomplished, the good things they've done. And again, be specific on what you've done. And then education. In my past, education was not my strength. I didn't have a 4-year degree. I didn't have a lot. So I put education at the bottom of my resume. I did my career highlights, job experience, all the things I accomplished at the top. And I mentioned the bit of education I did have. If you're really strong on the education piece, you typically will put that more at the top or after your objective and stuff. You go education, then experience. But I put it based on what's the strength that you can bring to the table, because people's attention spans, especially if they've got a lot of applicants, even if it's a digital, they're looking through a lot of resumes. You want to show your strengths early. So put those towards the top of your resume. And another recommendation, if you know something very specific you want to go for, for me, it took a provoking and a pushing from a friend of mine. When I went back last time, I've done quite a few different jobs over the years, finally started figuring out what I really wanted to do. But when I went back into what I do now, I had just said, I want to go into corporate training. So but I didn't think I could get it. And a friend of mine said, why don't you think you could get it? And I thought, well, I don't have a degree, but I had a ton of training experience, but mostly volunteer. And she's like, why don't you think you could get it, Lenora? Focus on it. I think you can get this. Thank God I trusted her, did all the work, had to write out and figure out how to do those situation, action, result stories, focused, looked on some online with what they were looking for. And I absolutely got that job. And I'm so glad I had someone that said, why don't you think you can get this? Because I was ready to talk myself out of it. I pretty much already had. She had to ask me 3 or 4 times, what do you want? And I would sing this, and now I could go this. What do you want? And I finally said, well, what I really want is to be a corporate trainer. Well, why aren't we doing that? Because I had talked myself out of it. So you need to be your biggest fan and encourager, and then hopefully have friends that will encourage you too. So again, and with awards, volunteer work, hobby, that shows a little bit about you. Again, it's partly showing something that's going to get what they're looking for at the top of the resume, but you're also showing a little bit about who am I? Because people tend to repeat the behavior they're already doing. So that again, reduces risk for the employer. If you would do some things, great work and volunteer work, then you want to share that because they know you're doing extra things. I talked a little bit about using the clear example, so I'm going to jump past that because I want to switch it within about 5 minutes or so. I want to switch over to our other guest, and then to the Q&A. So on the interview, I'm just going to take about 5 minutes on this. I don't know if you're seeing me move around the video clip piece, but I'm moving it around on my screen. So for the interview, few tips on this. We've talked a lot about the preparation. A bunch of that is your resume. So you can actually just get in the door. After that, your preparation is obviously don't just be on time to an interview, be early. Because you're telling the employer, if you won't do the effort to be on early and for sure on time in case there's any delays in the process, if you're not going to be early to their interview, then you just increase their risk of wondering, will you show up on time for the job? Okay. So be early. When you come in, you don't know who's making the hiring decision. You don't know how close of a relationship the person in the reception room is with the person who's managing the team that you're interviewing for, or how well they're connected. Besides, as humans, we should just be kind in general, but realize you don't know if that person on the elevator is on the team that's about to interview you or connected to the team, or who knows. So you always want to be kind and smiley and friendly to everybody. Okay. Sincere, but friendly. And your handshake, practice that a little bit. It's kind of funny. Some people, and I can't do it with myself because this is opposite hands, but sometimes with friendships, people will do just the kind of a very loose one. No, you want to kind of do a nice firm, what do they do? The thumb to thumb, whatever, the web to web, couple shakes and let it go. Don't hang on forever. And obviously sometimes people aren't handshaking now. So but I bring that up in case that is relevant at the time. Posture in general. My daughter was years ago, she only did this once. A friend talked us into it. She actually won at 10 years old, this little kid pageant thing. It was just like they had to have a group interview with 5 adults. And she was 10 years old. And then walk around the stage in some long dress. And then they didn't have a talent thing. I forget what else they did, but it was just mostly the interview and just to give them courage and whatever. But she learned about posture and eye contact. Posture often just shows it's a sense of confidence. It's just a good thing to practice. It just projects confidence. Eye contact, pretty simple, is you definitely want to make eye contact with people, be able to smile, look them in the eye and be comfortable. Again, that helps a sense of trustworthiness and connectedness. And sorry, this is really basic stuff, but hopefully just a reminder. If you're in a group interview, I thought this was helpful. If you're in a group interview, let's say there's 3 or 5 people and you're in there and they're asking questions. Sometimes it's one person asking questions. Sometimes it'll move around. A nice tip is, let's say somebody in the center is asking me a question. So I'm looking at them when they're asking. When I start my answer, have my eye contact be on them and then share your eye contact kind of with the team as you're going through your answer. Because you don't know who's making the hiring decision. So simple tip. Answer questions with specifics. That goes back to if I can give them a real example of customer service, a real example of problem solving, a real example of dealing with a challenge of some kind, give them a specifics. What was the situation? What actions did I take? What results did I get? That again helps you you want to practice, think ahead of time. What are some of those things I could share? You can look up questions that may come up when you do a Google search or whatever. Practice some specific, what situation could I go from the past, whether it was a school project or a work project, what actions did I take? What results did I get? And then when it's your time to ask questions of them, they may say, do you have any questions for me? Definitely have a couple questions ready. Again, that shows you're interested because you may be qualified for a position and so is the person before you or after you. But if you ask questions that make it seem like you really seem interested in this job, you'll stand out more. Because again, it's a risk. They're wondering, will this person actually stay? If you sound more interested, like you really want this, you're less of a risk and more likely to get an offer. Okay. So express interest. And you can ask questions like, that's another slide coming up, but you can also express interest in the position. I highly recommend that for the same reason as the last comment I just made, express interest in the job. Like you may say at the end, if they haven't told you any details, like when they're going to get back to you or what's the next step, then it's fair to say, so when can I expect to hear from you? And let them answer that question. If they haven't told you, we'll know. 'Cause sometimes like, oh, great talking with you. And you're like, what am I supposed to expect? So it's okay to ask. So when do you think I'll hear back from you? And you might even say, if you're talking to several companies, you can say, I actually am having a few different interviews, but I'm very interested in this job. So I want to know when I'm going to hear back from you, because this other job does seem interested in me. And I want to make sure I can hear and talk with you before I make a decision. You've done a couple smart things right there. You're in demand. Don't make that up. You don't have to make that up if it's not true. But if it is, or say I am interviewing with several other people and I'm not sure when, I want to know for sure when I can hear back from you. It lets them know you're an interest. You're being sharp. You're being specific. You're being clear, and you've expressed interest in the job. When you leave, be sure and thank them. It's kind of that. Again, if you're doing handshakes or not, I don't know. But the thank you for the time. I hope to hear from you. I'm looking forward to it. I appreciate our interview today. Anything like that is just smart. It's just good. And then follow up. You don't want to be a stalker, but you do want to follow up. You don't want to follow up every day but you want to follow up at least once a week. Sometimes you could do it at the beginning of the week, end of the week, but follow up for several weeks. So many times it's easy to be discouraged, talk yourself out of it, think, they didn't care, I'm not going to get it. It's most of us, so many times we talk ourselves out of things. And I know it's a risk. So encourage yourself, be kind to yourself, but follow up and say, hey, I'm just checking again. I would love to talk with you. And I'm here and whatever, follow up with an email, things like that. Typically it's going to have to be email. I want to switch on to this, but or barely touch on this. Look at the time. I've got a couple more minutes before we switch. Common questions. So since these are common, and I literally just looked these up, I think on the common questions when I did a Google search. Tell me a little bit about yourself. What are your biggest weaknesses? What are your biggest strengths? Again, the reason why they're asking questions is to try to gauge, what is this person like? What, you're just trying to find out what's their attitudes. What do they think? Because again, they're trying to reduce the risk. Is this someone that is going to fit with our team? Is this someone who's honest, or all that kind of stuff? So one thing that you can do when it talks about weaknesses, because you're thinking, who wants to talk about your weaknesses? You guys may have already been well skilled on this, but I may say something like, which this would be true of me, is I often underestimate sometimes how much time it's going to take to get a project done. I'm very excited about doing it. I can be very ambitious, but I sometimes overestimate how much I can get done in a day. So I would say that's a weakness I have. So I'll be make sure I'm asking more questions, and I focus on try to put a realistic timeline together, something like that. So I can show how I'm honest. I know that, but it's actually a good thing that I'm so ambitious. It's not so great that I underestimate. What are your biggest strengths? I might say, I really love working with people. I truly enjoy working with people. So I want to understand the team. I like working with teams, things like that. And it's smart if you know it aligns with the position. That's the time to showcase your strengths. Okay. Questions for them. Again, you make sure you want to have them. You can ask them something like, so what do you like most about working here? You mentioned you've been here for 10 years. That's great. Why do you still work here? You can get some insight. Again, reduce your risk. Is this a company I want to work for? Why did they actually stay? And it also, when people can talk about themselves, it tends to endear them to you a little bit too. And if you happen to know there's challenges going on about their sector, like with supply chain right now, it's been a lot of work in our sector. What's a lot of stuff going on? So how does that actually impact you guys? Again, it shows interest, things like that. We have a motto, and we obviously at times need degrees too, but a lot of times we really have had a strong focus: hire for attitude, train for skill. I think more companies do this than they realize, because the truth is it's much easier to train a skill than an attitude. Someone who's willing to do anything, really jump in, help a team, really wants to take care of customers, really wants to solve problems, has great integrity. Trust me, everybody's looking for that. So if you can show how you care, things about your character and throughout the conversation, it's a great thing. We happen to have lots of positions right now going on. There's lots of stuff moving around the globe. At Expeditors, we're moving freight around the world, non-asset based, meaning we work with many other companies to do that. But we actually have a link specifically for Cristo Rey alumni, and it shows every live posting that we have around the country, actually around the world, but in this posting, it's specifically around the US. We're in over 60 countries. And it's a great company with very much a promote from within. In fact, I've had 4 positions since I started the company myself, almost 13 years ago, and only the first one existed. The second one would never been there before. The third one never been there before. The one I have now never existed before. So You just serve well. That's one of my motto for myself. I used to have it on my wall, serve well. And it's a great company that will provide opportunity, but we're a hardworking bunch. So I want to turn it now over to our wonderful guest, Boujou. Are you ready? And then she can just share again for her a bit of her story, her hiring story and her past and what she does now. And then we'll shift over the last piece for questions. And I'm not seeing her on the screen like I was before. So, oh, there you are. Okay. Well, let me bring the slide down. You are, of course you are. And then I'm going to stop sharing.
Okay.
We'll have the group of us. And I'll mute
Hi,
myself.
everyone.
Go ahead.
Thanks a lot for joining us today. I do not have any slide because I just want to give a little bit background about myself, and I just want to have eye contact with you guys. And I'm Burcu. I'm working for Expeditors almost 5 years, and I born and raised in Turkey. And then after high school, I decided to not go to school, and then that's my story is a little bit backward. And then I said, you know what, I don't want to go to school. I don't need it. And we had family company. And then next couple weeks later, maybe 2 weeks later, my uncle said, oh, you are not going to go to school. Then you will come and work for us. I was like, okay, but what I was expecting, fancy title, manager, supervisor, or whatever. And then I was expecting desk, maybe fancy room, but it didn't happen. My uncle, he said, hey, Boujou, you're going to start serving a tea to our guests. I kind of disappointed. Don't get me wrong. It's like I was teenager and I have big expectation without having like solid, but how I'm going to explain, without having background. And then he said, no, you're going to serve a tea. It was like hardworking for me. And I really disappointed. I get upset to my uncle. I was like, how? And then one day he come to me and he said, Pujo, don't underestimate any job. There is no less important job in that company. Everything is important. And then he said, this job is you're gonna get those positions you want in the future. Those jobs is gonna help you to understand people you are working with. No one is above you, no one is below you, everybody is equal. And then he mentioned that, it's like, without these people, I'm nothing as a boss of the company, like president of the company. That stuck in me. And I said, next week, I just want to, and he told me, whatever you are going to do, just try to be the best one. Next week, I just baked some cookies next to the tea I was giving the guests. Like, I was trying to add value to the things I was doing. A couple months later, he said, you can answer the phones right now. And then, maybe 3 or 4 months. After then, one day, when you learn a lot, school is important, because we were having conversation, and one point he said, you have capacity, you are smart, but unfortunately, without education, like the degree, no one is going to take you serious, unfortunately. And I was like, okay. I didn't right away, I didn't apply for the school. I was like thinking, because it's going to take time. Am I going to be able to do that? Is it going to be fun? It's like, do still what the most important one, what I want. Those questions you need to ask yourself first. What I did, I apply. You need to take the exam to go to the university in Turkey. I just prepared myself almost a year, and then I said, what I want to do question was the most important part. What I want to do. I really for me, international logistics was a big thing, and I was like, okay, I want to do something related with this one. And then I went to school. I worked full-time, and also I went to school full-time. It was overwhelming. When I was going to school, what I did, like everybody was like, was like younger than me, and I was the older one. This is one of the challenge. And we were not in the same mindset, because everybody has different experience, different stories, right? And I was like, okay, am I gonna adapt that differences? For me, it's like whatever I did, it just turned really, really good to me. I was aware why I'm in there. Most of them wasn't, because they were like teenagers, and they were like, they don't know what exactly they want from the life or in the future. And the second one, I said, every single moment in that school, I will take full advantage without doubt. Like they were posting posts like, we are hiring for the, like the president for the school club. a young entrepreneurship club. I'm like, okay, I will be there. And then I learned a lot from it. I had tons of connection from the network. All the professor was, they started knowing my name, and then it was like big deal. And also I was able to manage a team, huge team from the students. And then it just it helped me to improve my leadership skill. And every single experience, like every posting in the school, I was like going and applying. If there is a certificate program, I was there. But I didn't know how those experiences going to help me in the future. One day, yes, I did tons of work in my family company, but I realized it's my comfort zone. I'm working with my family. Am I really successful? That was the question. It just made me, after I graduated from school, I said, seriously, Boujou, are you successful, or you looks like successful because you are working on your family company? That was the question. And then I said, what I can do? I said, let's try. Going different city is not going to help me, because same culture, same thing I'm going to do. I said, how about going outside of the country? And then I just searched for it wasn't easy. And I promised myself I will not going to get any financial support from my family. That was the thing. And then I decided to apply schools. I got a scholarship from Seattle Central Community College, success scholarship, I remember. And I said, let's do certificate program. When I was doing my certificate, again, I had a really good relationship with my professor. I was asking, there is no stupid question. In the school, all those professors is there for you. Take full advantage. Try to learn as much as you can. And then one of my professor, he said, Pujo, like take the interview class, resume building class. I was like, okay, because the structures can be different. I took that class, and I know I was barely speaking English. 6 years ago, I wasn't speaking English at all. Right now, my English is not perfect, but I'm getting there. I'm working. And then I said, I will not gonna find any position in here because of my English. That was like one of the thing I was thinking a lot. It's like, let's try, Burcu, don't give up. This is the secret of successful. Never give up. Try really hard. And then I got my certificate program from Seattle Central College. I was like, let's look for the job. It wasn't fun, but I didn't lose my hope. I applied Expeditors. I wasn't expecting they're going to reach out, but during that time, I had portfolio. I'm not kidding. Like, not resume. I have huge portfolio, because what I was thinking, if I'm not going to able to explain myself really well, maybe some of the pictures or some of the things can speak for me. That was the key. And then I print my resume. The things Lenora mentioned, yes, I had like whatever I did, social responsibility projects I put in there. All these things, it's like small group projects when you are working with it's like at school. Do you think this is one of the best example how you are gonna deal with the conflict? Don't think I do not have work experience. That means you don't have anything to share. You have power. When you start thinking about it, you will understand. It's like those small team projects, how is impactful, how you are gonna help you grow as a leader. So those, I was like, I prepared everything, and then I had resume, and then I applied for Expeditors, ocean import internship position. And then they said phone interview. I don't like phone interviews. Trust me. I was like, I prefer to have like that eye contact, because they are not going to know they are not going to see my body language. But I said, this is the first challenge, Pujo. Accept it, or, take it or leave it, and then I said, I'm ready. I remember I was like, really, really nervous. And then I was like, what I'm going to do? But they asked same question. Tell something about yourself. What are you doing? What's your weakness? I was honest, but what Lenora said, I have all the stories. I didn't know the star model, like the answering the questions. What I know, what's the issue? How did you solve it? What was the outcome? This is the information in my mind. I was like, I need to have an example for every single one of them. They invite me for second interview. I was like, okay. And then now in person, I went there. Of course, because I was nervous and I couldn't able to explain myself. I struggled in one point, and I just opened my portfolio. I was like, this is the things I did. What I did, for example, when I was a president in the Young Entrepreneurship Club, people are not performing. My team member wasn't performing. And they were like, okay, if there's a fancy job, going to professor or meeting with the people from industry, they were like, okay, I'm gonna take it. But if you want to do some accounting work or something, they were not, oh, I don't want to. I said exact same thing. There is no less important job in our team. Everything is important. And then, but again, I was dealing with the, it's like people younger than me, and I was like, Pujo, you need to be patient. What I did, I said, let's take the drum class. When you start doing the, if everybody's gonna do whatever they want when they are, it's like playing drum, it's gonna be really mess, like noise, right? But if everybody start listening each other and then play the drums, it's gonna be like music, like harmony is gonna be there, right? And then we become a team after that class because we learn we need to listen each other. That was the example I gave it to them. They asked me, what makes you a great leader? I was like, this is the example I had. I was barely speaking English. Sometimes I'm laughing with the answer I gave, but I went home and I said, Burcu, you did everything. You did everything you can. What Lenora said, check their website. What was the Expeditors culture? Everything. I was like, you know what? We need to let it go right now. There's no regret. And then they called me again for third interview. I was like, okay, it's really nice. And then I went there. They asked me same question, different people. And then in one point, it's like, don't feel stressed about this one. Because it's like, if you are thinking interview is just hiring one person, is not that. There is two ways. You are choosing the company you want to work for. They are choosing the employee they want to hire. Okay, there is like equal situation for me, and it's going to put less stress on you. And every single day I ask questions to the different people, why you are here? And then they told me, it's like, we are hiring for skills, and we are not, we are hiring for attitude, and then we are training for the skills. It stuck on me. I was like, yes, this is what I'm looking for. Again, I was barely speaking English. I didn't have fluent English. They just hired me because of my attitude. And then the examples I was able to give it to them. They really liked the challenges I had, like, it was like just moving outside, leaving your comfort zone. It was a big deal for them. And I'm still working for Expeditors. I love Expeditors. The first role I got, like ocean import intern. And then 2 months later, they said, Pujo, you are not an intern anymore. You are gonna be our ocean import agent. And then after 6 months, they said, we need someone for pricing, Pujo. Can you please take this lead? I was like, yes, I will be there for you guys. I did pricing. After 6 months, they said, Pujo, you will be our team lead. I was like, okay, I will take it. And then I never bargained about the money, to be honest, because money is super important, of course, but it's like, don't go for the money. Just for me, Expedite is like the school, and I'm getting paid. This is what I was thinking. They were training me, and then I was getting paid. After then, of course, you're gonna grow, and then your financial situation, finance status is gonna be grow too. And then this is one advice I can give it to you right now. After working for Seattle branch, and they said, Pujo, there is an opening. Do you want to apply? I was like, yeah, let's go. And then right now I am working in our headquarters as a product integration manager. Again, I never see any judgment about my language. Only thing I saw is like support from people. And this is amazing for me, amazing experience. And this is, if you have any question, I'm happy to answer, but I didn't want to go with the slide. I just want to explain myself the way I want. And if you have any question, please do not hesitate. We are here to support you.
Thank you. And I know one thing I want to say is, because Boujou and I hadn't really connected until not that long ago. It was during 2020, right?
Yes.
And I think you contacted me because you had an interest in the Opportunity Knocks program. And then so we were asking questions. I was learning about her. And turns out she had worked with some of our candidates that had been at the Seattle branch. And I just went, I automatically going, I want her on the team. You're like, she's so enthusiastic. She's passionate. Of course, we both care about a lot of the same things. But it's like, again, it's her attitude, her passion, her desire to make a difference that is just always causes her to stand out, just that attitude, it oozes out of her. So thank you.
Thank you.
I know we have like just under 10 minutes. Do you guys, what we want to do is if you have questions, we would love to answer. You can ask either one of us anything, you want, and we'll answer however we can. Who's first?
I'll go ahead. Can y'all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. So for Miss Turner, I wrote a few notes. So I really like that how you received like a job, like even though you were doubting yourself, I'm really happy that you had that person to push you. Like thankfully for me, I've always had my parents to support me. And like one thing I always keep in mind, like when applying for scholarships and stuff, when I feel like, oh, I'm not gonna get it, or like I need to like trust in my skills, because I always remember this quote, and I don't know if it's like an actual quote, but I mean I've heard it a lot. It's just like, you miss like 100% of the chances you don't take. So like it doesn't hurt to try if you have the time, and I mean just try. It doesn't hurt to try. And then I did have a question over how you were saying. You were talking to somebody, I believe, and then they were talking about an award that they received, but they didn't think it was like that important, and you told them to include it in their resume. So I don't know what that was, but I've heard that you shouldn't make or try to keep your resume as concise as possible while still including like all the stuff that's important, correct? So I was thinking, should we just have like a resume, even if it's like over one page, that like with all of our accomplishments and all of our experience in education, and then just make like a separate one for like each company that's tailored. Like you mentioned, like the vocabulary that they use, or like just tailoring it to what they're looking for, but still have one that's just like with everything that you've done, just to make it easier.
You certainly could do that. And I do think, thank you for that question. I think that quality or matching and expressing what you have done is much more important than the actual length. Because especially nowadays, it's almost all digital. You're going to upload it. And so like you can take a LinkedIn. If you don't have a LinkedIn profile, do it. Create one on LinkedIn, because you want it. That way it's kind of like a digital resume. And I realized I had stuff on there, and I read it myself and went, oh my gosh, Lenora, sharpen it up, because I wasn't looking for a job, but I decided to go through it. And it shows past jobs. And I want to show it. It's not a perfect example because I'm literally haven't been looking for so long, but I even recently broke down some of the stuff. So yes, what I sometimes do is having LinkedIn with some examples is good, your general focus, but yet I think that taking something like that, because once it's on LinkedIn, I didn't mean this to be a promo for LinkedIn, but it works pretty well. You can actually download that LinkedIn to a document, and then you can, do the save as, and make a different type of resume. Because there's times where like, I didn't know for sure if I was going to go for a while. Could I go towards production? I'd done a fair amount of production work and some video, or I could go towards the training aspect. And so as I was looking for jobs and wasn't really sure, I did the save as. I have a lot of it, the content same, and then I'd make some different ones. And then in the corporate training one, I would take the main one I had, do a save as, just make it something that I could tell was different. And I'd fit that one. So I ended up, having, 3 different ones, a bit, even in the corporate training area, because I wanted to match it, not identical, but it seems like a lot of work, and it is some extra effort, but it's that thing. It's not that hard to stand out. It's just so easy not to. People don't do those extra steps that help them get through that first filter, which is often just match some of those words, show some specifics, situation, action, result, in different ways. So yes, it could be a great way to do it. And again, if you don't have a LinkedIn profile, it's pretty smart to do, even if it's just because it stores your information digitally for you. But you don't have to. You could do that with the Word doc and upload it when you need to.
Yeah, I'll make sure to do that after, because I have heard about them. I'm just never taking the initiative to actually make the profile, since I only have one job experience, I guess.
That's okay.
I also wanted to know, are we gonna have like some time to like for you to like look over, or for all of you to like look over our resumes, so you can give us some pointers or something we could add or delete or changing the wording?
I want to say we could do it since there's you two of you on the call, but we can't offer that as far as the recording for the future. Simple, just amount of time we couldn't. But if you want to email it to us, and Brianna can get that to us, we would do that for you.
Do I email it to Brianna, or because I think her contact information was on the email?
Yeah, she can get you the information, or either way that works, but we won't put it out there for everyone. We couldn't simply manage that down the road if this ends up being listened to more. But thanks for being on the call. We'd love to do that for you.
Thank you so much. I also have some more questions, but I want to give a chance to whoever else is on the call to speak in case they have anything to talk about.
I just have a question just to add to that. So like, as somebody who doesn't have a lot of experience with networking yet, like how do you recommend them start networking? Because I know you mentioned, Lenora, that a lot of jobs come from referrals, and people that it's not always what you know, but the people you know. So like, how do you even start that process exactly?
That's a good question, and I'm sure, and always I say Google search, they'll give you lots of ideas. So I'm trying to think off the cuff. Certainly any family or friends, and you have jobs, you find out what you may not even realize what some of your friends' parents do, or you're in a store and you meet somebody and it just seems like a question you can ask. I mean, that may be a little too random, but definitely read on some sites. And that's one thing you can do on LinkedIn is you can begin to connect a little bit, sometimes do a post. And gosh, Boujou, you could probably bring a better example of that than me. I'm not a ton of stuff's coming up to me because it does take stepping out of your comfort zone. Sometimes it's going to, if there are events, job fairs, go to them. Do things like that so you meet them.
And it's like, first of all, first action item for you guys, just open up LinkedIn, and then we can be your first network. It's like, this is how you are gonna build. We met, and then we had 1 hour, we shared 1 hour together, right? And then this way you're gonna. For me, I came one of the training, and then 20 people over there, and then I sit, like next to someone. I was like, hey, LinkedIn, I'm not gonna add you from Facebook or Instagram. This is personal, but let's connect professionally. And then this is something I highly recommend. All your professors, your network. Friends in the class, your network. And then you will never know who is gonna help you to step up. And another thing with that, it's like one thing, if you don't have, if you didn't get referral or no one's refer you, don't lose your hope. You can do by yourself. Don't give up. No one referred me to Expeditors. But
Same
if
here.
you have, right, Lenora, this is like, don't lose your hope, but start building it. You can add me from LinkedIn.
Yeah, the second day I was at Expeditors, I ran right into somebody I went to high school with. I forgot he worked there. It was like, oh, but so it had nothing to do with me getting a job there. I found it. I'd used Indeed.com and searched for corporate training and applied for it and stayed with it. They took me, well, it was a bit of a delayed process before I got the job. I thought they weren't going to get back to me, and then they did. So this has been fun, you guys. Thanks for.
Yes.
Okay. Also, Ms. Turner, sorry, I missed that about when you said to follow up. So you said you heard it took a while for you to hear back from them. So when you said to follow up like through email, would it be just like weekly checking in to see? Yeah. So what would you include in that email?
Again, I try to, I don't know if there's a perfect way. And again, I always say Google, there's so many examples, but I just did I just wanted to follow up. We interviewed, remind them when it was, if you want to reattach your resume, make it as easy as possible for them to get back to you. So I can say, a reminder, I interviewed on this date for this role. I'm still very interested. Would love to have a conversation with you. Appreciate your time. And something simple, but clear. I always, again, remind it, make it as easy as for them to, because they have a lot going on. Again, they're overworked is why they're hiring in the first place. So anything that makes it easy for them to get back to you. And again, if it's reattaching the resume, all of that is just, if it's easy, the easy button-ish, the more likely you're going to hear back, because they got a lot going on. Typically, it's about that.
I did like a couple interviews a lot too when I was in branch, and then it's like sending thank you letter after the interview, right after. This is one of the big deal. I was like, okay, good. It's like we are putting another check mark over there, and sending follow-up email like, hey, nice to talk with you again. I'm super excited to get this role. Do you have an update for me? It's like just whatever you are gonna write, just feel it, and then it's like just put it there. This is the secret. Sometimes, yes, there's tons of examples with Lenora said, like, keep it simple, but put whatever you want to put over there. Because this is, your emails is unique to you too, right? Just reflect to yourself in that emails too.
Okay, I know we're out of time, but real quick, I just want to say I really liked your presentation as well. And that I really like that you mentioned that like everyone like is like on the same level in a company. So like the CEO couldn't be like as successful as he is without the rest of the workers, the receptionist being there to greet everyone, and everyone taking the calls for him and helping out. So I really hate when like that's what I really or dislike. Hate is a strong word. I really dislike when like especially when people are like rude to like waiters and stuff. I feel like that also shows like a lot of traits about them because they're already like so overworked. They just don't deserve that. Let me see what else I wrote. And also it's really bad when nobody takes you seriously if you don't have like at least like a high school degree. So it makes you like need to put in more effort. But I mean, I tell my friends this all the time, the ones who don't want to go to college. I'm like, well, you don't need a college degree to be successful as long as you have like the drive, as long as you have a plan. Like that's what's most important, because obviously college isn't for everyone. I'm lucky it is for me, right? Because I mean, that's the most society like that expects you to do that, right? The college and stuff. But I know like there's like a lot of billionaires who dropped out or didn't even go to college and were still successful. So I know I tell all my friends, like, if you don't want to go to college, that's fine. Just have a plan, like work something out, and I mean, you'll get there eventually as long as you stay motivated.
Oh, there's many great jobs in the trades, many great, good paying job in the trades as well.
For sure. Would you also, last question, would you recommend putting like a little picture or something on your resume just so you can stand out a little more and make it more personal, like add a face to it?
I did. And I think, and I was told, of course, he joked with me. He thought he was going to throw he actually said, I was going to throw your resume in a round file for having a picture on it, but she wanted to interview you. He was that much of a joker when we went in. I did that. That's the first time I had ever done it. So I don't know. It's kind of hit and miss. I don't think it's bad or good. I think sometimes it's the sector too that you're in. If it's very, very unlikely to do that, maybe you don't want to. If it's a norm, more of a norm, then go for it. It's, I'm not sure on that one. Again, you're an actor, yes.
Exactly, it's your call. You know, if you want to put your picture, go ahead and put it. Like, if you don't want, it's not good, because most of the time you're gonna upload your resume to the system, and the system is gonna make those elective, not with from your picture.
And if it's dumped into a system, most of them don't have the space for the photo. That's just they're looking for that information. They just want to know: do you have the skills, the knowledge, the behavior we're looking for?
Well, thank you so much. That's all my questions. And well, thank you so much for your presentations. They were super informational, and I'll make sure to email Brianna with my resume. So hopefully y'all can take a look at it when you have time.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you to all of you for joining. I know we are at the end of our time, and you probably have a million other questions you probably have still left. Feel free to email me and I can send them to Lenora. You have like a complete support system behind you right now. And plus you just had 3 new networks, so congratulations. So yeah, that's really exciting. Thanks for joining us today. Yeah, that's about it. Hope you guys enjoy your day.
Thank you. Thank everybody. Thank you too.